Every person carries within them two versions of themselves, the one they have been and the one they were born to become. The tragedy of life is that many people live and die without ever meeting their true selves. The version molded by fear, shaped by doubt, and chained by past mistakes often becomes the identity we cling to. But hear me clearly, the old you must die so that the real you can rise. The old you is comfortable. It knows the routines, the excuses, and the limitations. It has learned how to survive, but it has never learned how to truly live. That version of you is a product of opinions, disappointments, and failures. If you keep holding on to it, you will never touch the future that was written for you before time began. You were not created to live small. You were not designed to be trapped by the memory of who you used to be. There comes a moment in every destiny where a decision must be made. Do you continue protecting the familiar prison of your past, or do you break free to discover the unknown greatness of your future? Transformation always requires a death, the death of fear, the death of insecurity, the death of excuses. Until that burial takes place, resurrection cannot happen. Understand this. The true you is waiting, but it cannot emerge while the old version still rules your life. Just like a seed must break before it grows, so must your old identity break apart for your potential to flourish. The struggle you feel right now is not the end. It is the birthing of something new. You must be willing to let go. Let go of who people said you were. Let go of the labels life has placed on you. Let go of the voice inside that whispers, you can't. The moment you release the old, the moment you bury that outdated self, the real you begins to rise with strength, clarity, and vision. Your future is not waiting for a better environment or a perfect opportunity. It is waiting for the real you to show up, and the real you will only rise when the old you is no longer in control. Would you like me to extend this to around 650 words for a deeper, more powerful flow like Myles Munroe often did in his speeches? Or keep it tight and impactful at about 400. The old self must die. Your past identity, built on fear, failures, and limitations, cannot coexist with the true version of you destined for greatness. Comfort is the enemy of growth. The familiar self may feel safe, but it keeps you trapped in survival instead of stepping into real living. Transformation requires letting go to rise. You must bury fear, insecurity, and excuses. Only through death of the old can resurrection of the new happen. Your true self is waiting like a seed that must break to grow. Your potential lies hidden until you release the outdated version of yourself. The future depends on your courage. Destiny is not waiting for conditions to change. It is waiting for the real you to rise and take ownership of your life. Would you like me to also convert these into short, punchy quotes like Myles Munroe often delivered so they can be used for slides, captions, or video highlights? The old self must die. This is one of the most difficult truths to accept, because the old version of who we are is familiar, and familiarity is comfortable. People hold on to their past selves because it feels safe. It is what they know, even if it limits them. But comfort is not destiny. What you are used to is not always what you were created for. The old you is a product of experiences, disappointments, opinions, and mistakes. It is shaped by circumstances, but not defined by purpose. As long as you cling to that version of yourself, you will never meet the person you were truly born to be. The old you represents survival. It learned how to cope, how to manage, and how to exist within certain boundaries. But survival is not living. Survival is settling. It is staying within the lines drawn by fear and insecurity. Many people are stuck because they refuse to let go of the identity built in their broken seasons. They keep feeding an outdated version of themselves with present energy. That is why they remain frustrated, because they sense there is more inside, yet they are still loyal to what they used to be. To let the old you die means to confront the patterns, habits, and mindsets that once served you but no longer serve where you are going. For example, the way you thought when you were afraid cannot guide you into courage. The way you saw yourself when you were insecure cannot sustain you in confidence. The way you handled rejection in the past cannot build your acceptance of who you really are. You cannot take the old mentality into a new season. If you do, you will sabotage your own future. Think of a seed. As long as it stays intact, it is safe, but it will never grow. It must break apart in order for life to emerge. In the same way, the old you must be broken, surrendered, and buried so that the real you can be born. That breaking is uncomfortable. It feels like loss. It feels like letting go of something that once defined you. But it is necessary, because until the seed dies, the tree cannot live. Until the old identity is surrendered, the new identity cannot rise. The old self is not just habits or behaviors. It is the voice that says, "I can't." It is the memory of failure that whispers, "You will never succeed." It is the label others placed on you that you still carry in your mind. It is the fear that causes you to shrink when you should step forward. Those voices belong to the old you, not the real you. And as long as you keep giving them authority, they will keep ruling your life. Death to the old self means silencing those voices and refusing to let them govern your destiny any longer. Letting go is an act of courage. It is a choice to release the person you were so that you can embrace the person you were meant to be. Too many people are loyal to their past. They defend their excuses. They protect their old wounds. They repeat the same stories of pain and failure until those stories become their identity. But you cannot carry the old story into your new chapter. At some point, you must bury the narrative of limitation and allow the story of possibility to be written. The old you will resist death. It will fight for survival because it has been your companion for years. But you must decide that your future is more important than your familiarity. Every time you choose growth over comfort, the old you loses power. Every time you speak possibility instead of limitation, the old you loses ground. Every time you take a step into the unknown, the old you weakens, and little by little, as the old dies, the real you begins to rise. This death is not a one-time event, but a continual process. Every new level of life will demand that an old version of you be laid to rest. What carried you through yesterday will not carry you into tomorrow. If you refuse to let go, you will remain stuck at the same level. But if you embrace the death of the old self, you unlock the birth of a greater self. The real you is not waiting on circumstances to align. It is waiting on you to release the outdated self that has been occupying your life. The death of the old you is not the end. It is the doorway to the life you were created to live. Do you want me to expand each keynote into this same style 700 words each so you end up with a full-length motivational book chapter flow? Comfort is the enemy of growth. At first, that sounds difficult to accept because everyone naturally longs for comfort. People want security, predictability, and a sense of control. Comfort feels safe. It shields you from uncertainty, from risk, and from the possibility of failure. Yet it is that very safety that keeps you small. Nothing extraordinary is ever born in comfort zones. Every person who has achieved greatness had to step away from the familiar into a place of discomfort. Growth never happens where it is easy. It only happens where you are challenged. Comfort has a way of tricking you into believing you are progressing when in reality you are standing still. You can stay in the same routine for years, repeating the same cycles, surrounded by the same environment, and convince yourself you are moving forward. But repetition is not progress. Stability without development is stagnation. Comfort seduces you into protecting what you know instead of pursuing what you could become. That is why many people live their entire lives inside boundaries they never dared to cross. Growth demands change, and change disrupts comfort. If you want to develop into the fullness of who you are, you must be willing to let go of what is familiar. You cannot hold on to safety and expect transformation at the same time. The muscles of the body grow only when they are stretched beyond their limits. The same is true of the mind and the spirit. Without resistance, without stretching, without discomfort, there is no expansion. Growth requires you to leave behind what feels easy in order to step into what feels challenging. Comfort may look like success, but it can become the greatest form of imprisonment. When you settle into a position, a job, a relationship, or a mindset simply because it is easy, you are unconsciously building a cage around your own potential. That cage is invisible, but it is powerful. It convinces you that this is all you can ever be, all you can ever have, all you can ever do. The longer you remain in it, the stronger it becomes. Before you know it, the comfort zone has transformed into a prison where dreams suffocate and destiny is delayed. Growth requires risk. Risk means you will face the unknown. It means stepping into situations that stretch you, where you cannot predict every outcome. That is why so many avoid it. They would rather cling to certainty, even if certainty keeps them small, than embrace uncertainty that could unlock greatness. But every breakthrough in life is on the other side of risk. Every discovery of who you truly are requires you to walk through doors that comfort tells you to avoid. Think about a child learning to walk. If comfort had the final say, that child would never take the first step. Crawling is safe, falling is embarrassing, but the child must be willing to stumble, to lose balance, to risk the pain of falling in order to discover the power of walking. And once that child learns to walk, crawling is no longer an option. In the same way, you must be willing to risk discomfort in order to walk into the future waiting for you. The truth is, discomfort is a signal of growth. The uneasiness you feel when you try something new, when you stretch yourself, when you leave the familiar, that is the proof you are moving forward. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is the evidence that you are breaking old limits. Too often, people mistake discomfort as a sign to stop, when in reality it is a sign to continue. The greatest achievements always come through the pathway of struggle. You were not designed to remain in the same place forever. Life itself teaches this principle. The caterpillar cannot remain a caterpillar and still discover flight. The seed cannot remain unbroken and still become a tree. The child cannot remain in the safety of the womb and still experience the world. Everything in creation teaches us that comfort must be sacrificed for growth to be realized. If you choose comfort, you choose limitation. If you choose growth, you must embrace discomfort. The two cannot coexist. That is why those who dare to grow often feel misunderstood. Others will look at them and say, "Why take the risk? Why not just stay where you are?" But the answer is simple. Staying the same is death to potential, and stepping out is the only way to truly live. Comfort is not evil, but it is dangerous when it becomes your permanent home. It is meant to be a place of rest, not a place of residence. If you make comfort your destination, you will never reach your destiny. Growth always lies just beyond what feels safe. The question is whether you are willing to step past your comfort to discover the life you were meant to live. Do you want me to expand Keynote 3 in the same depth and flow so the series feels like a continuous motivational teaching? Transformation requires letting go. Nothing changes until you release what no longer serves you. The reason many people remain stuck in the same cycles is not because they lack opportunity, but because they refuse to surrender the weight of their past. They carry fear, insecurity, and excuses like luggage, dragging them into every new season of life. You cannot run toward your destiny while holding on to what keeps you bound. At some point, you must decide that the pain of holding on is greater than the fear of letting go. Letting go begins with recognizing that your old patterns are not your identity. Fear is not who you are. It is something you learned, something you absorbed from circumstances, disappointments, or voices that told you that you were not enough. Insecurity is not your true self. It is a mask you put on when you believed the lie that you were unworthy. Excuses are not your destiny. They are simply stories you told yourself to explain why you remained where you were. Transformation cannot begin until these false identities are laid down. You cannot carry them into your future and expect to become new. Letting go is painful because it feels like losing a part of yourself. Fear has been with you so long that releasing it feels like tearing away skin. Insecurity has followed you since childhood, so leaving it behind feels unnatural. Excuses have protected you from responsibility, so abandoning them feels risky. But transformation requires loss. The old must die for the new to be born. Just as a snake sheds its skin to grow, you must shed what no longer fits. Refusing to do so means you stay trapped in an identity that is too small for the greatness inside you. Excuses are one of the heaviest weights people carry. They sound reasonable, but they are poison to transformation. I'm not ready. I don't have enough. What if I fail? These statements feel safe, but they quietly rob you of progress. Every time you excuse yourself from action, you give the old self permission to rule again. Transformation is not about waiting until conditions are perfect. It is about acting in faith while conditions are still uncertain. Letting go of excuses means accepting that responsibility for change lies within you, not outside of you. Fear is another chain that must be broken. Fear disguises itself as protection, but in reality it is paralysis. It whispers worst case scenarios until you are too terrified to move. But fear has no power unless you believe it. Transformation requires facing fear and refusing to give it authority. The moment you move despite fear, it begins to lose its grip. The more you act in courage, the weaker fear becomes. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that fear will not control your choices. Insecurity also fights against transformation. It convinces you that you are not capable, not worthy, not enough. But insecurity is rooted in lies, not truth. You were created with potential, equipped with gifts, and designed for purpose. Insecurity blinds you from seeing that. Letting it go requires replacing lies with truth, replacing doubt with confidence, and replacing weakness with vision. When you embrace the truth of who you are, insecurity can no longer dictate your future. Letting go is not passive, it is intentional. You cannot simply wish for transformation and expect it to come. You must deliberately release what holds you back. That may mean ending relationships that keep you tied to the old you. That may mean changing environments that feed your limitations. That may mean breaking habits that reinforce your fears. Transformation is always costly, but the price of holding on to the old is far greater than the cost of letting it go. The beauty of letting go is that it creates space for something new. When you release fear, you make room for courage. When you release insecurity, you make room for confidence. When you release excuses, you make room for progress. Transformation is not just about subtraction, it is about exchange. You surrender what limits you so that you can receive what empowers you. Every great transformation begins with a burial. The old must be buried so the new can rise. You cannot be both who you were and who you are becoming at the same time. A choice must be made. Each day you hold on, you delay your future. Each day you release, you accelerate it. Transformation requires letting go, and the sooner you let go, the sooner you will rise into the life waiting for you. Do you want me to also expand Keynote 4 in the same deep motivational style, so this becomes a powerful continuous series? Transformation requires letting go. Nothing changes until you are willing to release what no longer belongs in your life. Many people pray for change, dream of change, and talk about change, but they remain the same because they refuse to let go of the very things that keep them bound. You cannot step into a new season carrying the weight of an old one. To transform means to surrender, and surrender is never easy. But without release there can be no renewal. Fear is one of the greatest barriers that must be released. Fear convinces you that moving forward is dangerous, that taking risks is unwise, and that stepping into the unknown will destroy you. It disguises itself as wisdom, but in truth it is chains. Fear keeps you rehearsing what could go wrong until you are too paralyzed to act. Transformation demands that fear be put to death. You cannot rise into courage while holding hands with fear. Every act of faith requires letting go of the fear that whispers you are not ready, not capable, not strong enough. The moment you release that voice, you make room for a new one, the voice that declares you are prepared, equipped, and chosen for more. Insecurity is another prison that must be dismantled. It attaches itself to your mind and convinces you that you are inadequate. Insecurity compares you to others, measures you against standards that were never meant for you, and tells you that you do not measure up. But transformation cannot coexist with insecurity. To transform means to embrace the truth of your worth, to recognize that you carry gifts that no one else can carry, and to stand in the confidence of your design. Letting go of insecurity is not pretending to be more than you are. It is accepting that you already have what it takes to become who you are meant to be. Excuses are perhaps the most subtle yet powerful chains of all. Excuses sound intelligent, they sound logical, but they keep you anchored to the old self. I don't have enough time. I don't have the right resources. I'll do it when I'm ready. Excuses delay transformation by creating the illusion of justification. But the truth is, excuses are lies that protect your comfort zone. Transformation requires you to release them. Growth does not wait for perfect timing. Destiny does not wait for perfect conditions. You must act with what you have where you are right now. Letting go is not a moment, it is a process. Each stage of your life will demand a release of something. The habits that carried you through one season will not carry you into the next. The relationships that surrounded you when you were small may not fit the person you are becoming. The environment that once felt comfortable may now feel restrictive because your spirit has outgrown it. Every time you are called to rise, you will also be called to let go. Refusing to release means choosing to remain. Letting go requires trust. You must believe that what is ahead is greater than what is behind. Too often, people cling to the old because it is familiar, even when it no longer serves them. They would rather hold on to brokenness than risk the unknown. But transformation does not happen in the grip of the past. It happens in the surrender of faith. Trust that letting go does not mean losing. It means making space for something better. Think of a seed planted in the ground. It must let go of its outer shell, breaking apart, in order for new life to emerge. If it refuses to release its old form, it will never become the tree it was designed to be. In the same way, you must be willing to break away from who you were in order to rise into who you are destined to become. The breaking may be uncomfortable, the surrender may feel like loss, but it is the only path to transformation. The truth is simple. You cannot carry fear, insecurity, and excuses into your future. You must choose which version of yourself will live, the old you bound by chains, or the new you empowered by freedom. Transformation requires letting go. The sooner you release what holds you back, the sooner you will walk into the life that has been waiting for you all along. Would you like me to rewrite this keynote in a slightly different variation to same idea, but with fresh metaphors, so you can use it for different contexts like a speech and a book? Your true self is waiting, but it cannot rise as long as the old version of you holds power. Every person carries within them a vision, a potential, a future self that is greater than their current reality. Deep inside, you sense that there is more strength, more purpose, more capacity, more life. But that real version of you is hidden beneath layers of fear, doubt, failure, and limitation. Until those layers are stripped away, the true you remains silent, buried under the weight of who you used to be. The old self is like a shell. It feels protective, but it is restrictive. It was formed by experiences, shaped by the voices of others, molded by the circumstances of your past. but that shell is not the whole of who you are. It was temporary, never permanent. The real you is inside, waiting for the moment when you're willing to break free. Just as a chick must break through the eggshell to experience life, so must you break through the shell of the old identity to experience the life that was always meant for you. Too many people mistake the shell for their true identity. They think they are defined by their mistakes, by the labels others gave them, by the disappointments they endured. But the true self is never defined by failure. It is revealed through it. Your true self is not the person who was hurt. It is the one who rises after the pain. Your true self is not the one who fell. It is the one who learns to stand again. Every trial you have faced was never meant to bury you, but to prepare you for the emergence of who you really are. Think of a seed placed in the ground. To the eye, it looks small, ordinary, insignificant, but hidden inside is the potential for a tree that can grow tall and bear fruit. The seed must first die to its old form. Its shell must crack, its structure must break, and only then does the life within it begin to emerge. In the same way, your true self is waiting inside you, but the old identity must be broken for it to rise. You are not called to remain as the seed, you are called to become the tree. The struggle you feel right now is not a sign of defeat, it is the labor pains of birth. Growth always comes with pressure. When you feel pulled, stretched, and challenged, it is not because you are weak, but because you are being prepared for emergence. The old identity resists death. It fights to stay alive because it knows that once the true you rises, its power is gone forever. That is why stepping into your real self requires courage. You must choose to no longer identify with the shell of who you were, but to align with the life of who you are becoming. Your true self is stronger than the limitations you have believed. It carries vision, courage, and resilience that the old self never knew. It is the version of you that can dream without fear, act without hesitation, and believe without doubt. But this version of you does not appear automatically. It requires you to consciously lay down the old version. You cannot wear both identities at once. One must die for the other to live. The tragedy of life is that many never meet their true selves. They die still living in the shadow of who they were, never releasing the greatness within. But destiny is not fulfilled by accident. It is fulfilled by decision. You must decide that the shell of your past, the voice of your failures, and the weight of your fears no longer define you. You must choose to rise, even when rising feels uncomfortable. Once the true you emerges, you begin to see life differently. You no longer interpret opportunities through the lens of limitation. You no longer shrink when challenges appear because you know they are shaping you for more. You no longer allow the opinions of others to dictate your value because you are secure in who you are. The true self carries freedom, and freedom cannot be contained. Inside you right now, there is more than what the world has seen. There is a stronger, wiser, bolder version of you waiting for the moment you decide to let go of the old. The shell has served its purpose. The old identity has had its time. Now it is your responsibility to break free. The true you is waiting, and the future cannot begin until that version of you finally rises. Would you like me to expand Keynote 5 next in the same style, so you'll have the complete motivational flow across all 5? The time has come to choose. You cannot hold on to who you were and still step into who you were created to be. The old self has had its season, but its season is over. Every excuse, every fear, every insecurity that once defined you must now be buried. You cannot afford to keep living small when greatness has been written into your very design. The seed within you has waited long enough. The real you is ready to rise. This is your moment to break free. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Do not wait for everyone's approval, and do not wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow is promised to no one. The only time you truly have is now. Destiny does not begin in the future. It begins with the decisions you make today. So release the old you, lay it down, walk away from the weight of your past, and step boldly into the life waiting on the other side. The world is not waiting for another imitation. It is waiting for the authentic you. Your family needs it. Your generation needs it. Your future demands it. The real you is not a possibility. It is a responsibility. Rise up, break free, and walk into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. The old must die so the real you can live. Your future starts the moment you decide to let it.